The Geneva Summit for Human Rights. It sounds fancy, right? Like a place where people in suits sip tiny coffees and discuss human rights. But this summit is more than just fancy talk. It's a platform for the world to listen to stories they'd rather ignore. It's a spotlight shown on the darkest corners of the globe. This year, one of those corners was Zimbabwe. And the voice that pierced through the polite chatter belonged to Job Sikhala, a Zimbabwean member of parliament and human rights lawyer. Sikhala didn't come to Geneva for the tiny coffees. He came with a story of oppression, a story of courage, a story that needed to be told. Sikhala's story is not just about Zimbabwe. Enter the Zimbabwean Patriotic Act. It sounds harmless enough, right? Who doesn't love their country? But this act isn't about celebrating your nation with a good old-fashioned barbecue. It's about control. It's about crushing dissent. This law is like a bad karaoke singer, loud, obnoxious, and completely off-key. It gives the government power to punish anyone who dares to say anything that could engender feelings of hostility towards the government. Think about that for a second. Engender feelings of hostility? That's practically breathing in a democracy. This isn't just about stopping protests in the streets. It's about stopping conversations in kitchens, debates in classrooms, whispers in bars. It's about turning a nation into a silent movie where everyone is forced to smile and pretend everything is fantastic. But anyone with a brain can see the tears behind the forced smiles. Job Sikhala knows those tears all too well. He's seen firsthand the human cost of this so-called patriotic act. He's spent over 15 months in a Zimbabwean prison, accused of inciting public violence for daring to criticize the government. His crime? Speaking truth to power. Sikhala's own words at the Geneva summit paint a chilling picture. I stand before you as a victim of persecution. His voice, though physically free, carries the weight of his experience, the weight of all those silenced by the act. He speaks for those who can't, for those who are afraid, for those who have disappeared. His message is clear. The Patriotic Act is a weapon used to silence dissent and to punish those who dare to challenge the status quo. He isn't just talking about himself. He's talking about journalists thrown in jail for investigating corruption. He's talking about students arrested for posting criticisms online. He's talking about a nation choked by fear. Sikhala's testimony at the Geneva summit should be a wake-up call. The world needs to pay attention. We can't just sit back and sip our metaphorical tiny coffees while democracies crumble under the weight of patriotic laws. We need to demand better. We need to support those who are brave enough to speak out against injustice, even when it comes with a hefty price tag. We need to pressure governments to repeal laws that criminalize dissent. Summits like the one in Geneva are important. They give a voice to the voiceless. They shine a light on the dark corners. But they can't be the only spaces where we talk about human rights. We need to keep the conversation going. We need to make sure those in power know that we are watching, that we are listening, and that we demand better. Because silence, my friends, is anything but patriotic.